Okay, so after your property is listed for sale on the market and you receive an offer and an offer is negotiated to an accepted price and terms, what happens next? Well, what happens next is the buyer's agent will prepare a contract, and that contract looks like this. And I will link it down below. This is the standard form contract that we use here in New Jersey, and it is from the New Jersey Association of Realtors, sometimes referred to as the Najar contract. But basically, it's around 14 pages long, and it is all encompassing for most property sales in New Jersey. It covers single family, multifamily up to 4 units, and also condominiums. It does not cover vacant land. It does not cover cooperatives. Cooperative contracts have to be drafted by an attorney, or commercial, anything above 5 units and higher from a commercial investment property perspective is a separate contract that's drafted by lawyers. But as realtors, we can draft contracts for single family, condominium, and multifamily 2 to 4 family homes. So this is the contract. The buyer's agent will draft this contract, and I'll go through it with you. It has all the numbers on it. And basically, the entire contract will be subject to an attorney review period. In New Jersey, we are an attorney review state, meaning that a contract does not become binding until it passes through an attorney review period. And so therefore, once it's executed by both buyer and seller, that attorney review period will start. And I'll explain that in a few minutes. But I'll run through the contract right now. The first page is what's sometimes referred to as Opinion 26. What basically states is how realtors represent in the transaction, and that realtors are not attorneys. And if you need any legal advice, you should consult with an attorney. So this page will say how the real estate broker for the buyer represents themselves. So as a real estate broker, the buyer may represent the buyer or the transaction, or it might be a dual agent here noted on the contract. And basically that would be signed by both the buyer and seller and the realtors who are involved. The second page of the contract is really the start of the contract. And basically it's a legally binding contract that becomes final within 3 business days. During this period, you may choose to consult an attorney who can review and or cancel contract. See attorney review section for details. This 3-day period does not start until the contract has been signed by both buyer and seller. So the 3-day the clock does not start ticking until it's been signed by both buyer and seller, and each of those parties have been delivered the fully executed contract. Weekends do not count, holidays do not count. There's a whole attorney review explanation, but from my experience, attorney review periods do take longer than 3 days. I've had attorney review periods take a day. I've had them take 2 days. But if no one consulted with an attorney and the contract was fully signed by both parties and they both received a copy, after 3 business days, it would become binding. But everyone gets an attorney, therefore the attorneys extend the attorney review period. So you could speak with your attorney about that, but attorney review does not start until it's fully executed. So basically, it will have all the information here for the buyer and the seller. It will have the property that's being purchased, where it's located, what county, the tax map information. Starting around line 44 is the actual breakdown of the price. So the total purchase price, the initial deposit, the amount of mortgage, the balance of the deposit that's due at closing, who's holding the money for the deposits. Traditionally, it's held by the seller's attorney. I have seen some situations where the buyer's attorney holds it, but majority of the time, it's the seller's attorney that holds the deposits, and it's held in their escrow account. This whole section has to do with the mortgage contingency, how much of a mortgage the buyer is obtaining. If they're not obtaining a mortgage and they do waive the contingency and they are paying all cash, it will probably state that it would be $0 for mortgage. At some point in the contract, it would say that it's waived, the mortgage contingency. Line 95 has to do with when is the projected closing date. We have to put a targeted closing date for the contract. That date may fluctuate during the attorney review period, but it is a date that everybody will move, and the goal is to move towards that date. A lot of this is standard language. I will link down below this contract so you can review it. What's included in the sale, what's excluded from the sale. That would be on the listing. For multiple listing service, it would state what's included and what's excluded. So if say a chandelier is not included, we would put that here, or the appliances are included, we would state that here. This has to do with CO, municipal assessments, if there's not any known. Some of these items may not be known, so it would have to be addressed during internal review. What is the property zoned as? Well, it's represented as a condominium family home, or a one-family home, or two-family home. We would put that here. If there's tenants in the property, are you buying them with the tenants? Are they applicable to the sale? Who are they? What's the rent amount? If you're not buying it, if it's vacant, it's not applicable. Or if you're purchasing it delivered vacant, it would be not applicable. Lead paint form. I discussed this in a previous video. Any property built before 1978 has the possibility of lead paint. So is that applicable or not applicable? The next few pages have to do with home inspection. On the contract, the standard is the buyer will have 10 calendar days from the conclusion of the attorney review period to conduct a home inspection. Those dates may change as part of the negotiation, but built into the contract is 10 calendar days from the conclusion of review. And that's all sorts of inspections, whether it's structural, wood destroying insect, etc. There is a home inspection contingency clause in the contract unless the buyer has waived it as part of their negotiation to get the property offer accepted. Just so you are aware, in the state of New Jersey, line 367, buyer acknowledges that the property is being sold in as-is condition. So a buyer has a right to do a home inspection. They can ask for repairs or credits. It's the seller's choice whether or not they want to address that. It's the buyer's choice if they still wish to proceed, depending on the findings of the home inspection that took place. But in New Jersey, everything is sold as is. Now, I do see sellers work with buyers on some inspection items, but some things I do see sellers not work on. Every transaction is different. If the property's in a flood zone, that's talked about. What else we got here? A lot of this is just standard. What will happen is during attorney review, your attorney will have their own addendum to the contract, as well as the buyer's attorney will have their own addendum to the contract, also called a rider, basically making some changes to the language in this contract, adding language. Once there's agreement over that language in this contract and those addendums, then attorney review period will conclude. And the contract then becomes binding, bearing the mortgage contingency or the home inspection contingency inside the contract. This section talks about the realtors who are involved and how do they represent. So the buyer's agent or whoever's representing the buyer, how they're representing, the seller's agent, how are they representing, and then a breakdown of who those parties are involved in the transaction, the commissions that are being paid out. If the seller or buyer has a real estate license, that has to be disclosed. So that information would go here. If either party is a realtor, this is a broader explanation starting on line 651 of the attorney review period and how it works. And then starting around line 711, there's additional contractual provision section. So that would be, we would put information in there, like say that if the buyer is waiving the mortgage contingency, if it's an all cash transaction, or if they're waiving part of the home inspection contingency, or if there's a parking spot included, what that spot number is, if it's a condominium. So we put additional information here. The buyer will sign it, the seller will sign it, and initial each page. Then once it's fully executed by both buyer and seller, it starts the attorney review period. I'll discuss that in the next video. But that is a breakdown of the contract of sale in New Jersey. I'll link it down below. If you have any questions, please let me know. You can reach me at walter@livingonthehudson.com or at 347-448-3766. Thank you.